David Benavidez beats Gvozdyk by unanimous decision. This fight went not exactly how I thought it would go. David Benavidez came out applying pressure. Gvozdyk was on the back foot. Gvozdyk didn't really get much off in the early rounds, and he was fighting a little bit within himself. And Benavidez was mostly outworking him with his work rate. I felt like Gvozdyk had to do more counter punching to kind of control the pace of the fight and stop the high activity of Benavidez, and he couldn't really consistently counter David Benavidez in this fight. And it's ultimately what probably cost him the fight. Now, one thing that surprised me in this fight was David Benavidez's performance in the second half. I thought as this fight went on that Alexander Gvozdyk would start to show more wear and tear, would slow down, would be a little bit marked up, but none of that happened. Gvozdyk actually in the latter half did better, and Benavidez's punch output dropped. This was something that I had never seen from David Benavidez at 168. David Benavidez always finished strong. I mean, look at the Caleb Plant fight where he just dominated the second half of the fight and almost stopped Caleb Plant. So we've got to ask the question now, does David Benavidez have the same stamina at 175? And more important than that, does he have the punching power? Because he never really hurt Gvozdyk in this fight. And that was another surprise to me. Seeing Gvozdyk get hurt by Adonis Stevenson, by obviously Arthur Beterbiev where he got stopped, and also Tommy Capranesi, I believe his name is, who knocked him down. But yet Benavidez couldn't really put too much of a dent in Gvozdyk. Whereas at 68, Benavidez was a very good puncher. Almost hurt and dropped everybody he faced. So yeah, there are some concerns about David Benavidez after that performance. To his defense, he did say that he had some sort of injury, some ligament torn in his wrist or something. So maybe that's why his punch output dropped and he wasn't punching as hard as he normally does. Or maybe it's just the extra weight. He's fighting bigger guys now. He can't do as much damage to them. After this performance, I don't know how Benavidez would fare against Bivol and Beterbiev. I'd probably favour them too. Then again, I'm not going on this performance, which is the sole performance of David Benavidez's career at 75. At the top level. I think he fought once before at 75, but not against anyone of any note. I guess that's what really surprised me more than anything in this fight was the fact that David Benavidez in the second half wasn't really breaking Gvozdyk down, and he never really hurt Gvozdyk. Now, I picked David Benavidez to win, but I thought he'd stop him around the 10th round. You know, this performance from Benavidez is going to raise a lot of questions from a lot of people if he continues to campaign at 175. I think most people after this would pick Beterbiev and Bivol. I think, we've got to give Benavidez a bit of the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe this was his first fight. He was adjusting to the weight. Maybe there was a few niggles in training camp. But I don't know. I mean, the Benavidez of 68 looked like a world beater. He really did. But this Benavidez at 75, it wasn't a terrible performance from him. To be honest, he won most of the rounds, probably 9 of the rounds I gave him. 8 at worst. I mean, I struggled to give more than 4 rounds to Gvozdyk in this fight. Really struggled. He probably won 3 rounds, if we're being honest about it, at best. So it wasn't a terrible performance. And Gvozdyk is a very good fighter, like I said in my prediction video. This isn't like some second, third tier heavyweight, but he has been out of the ring a long time, you know, and we've seen what Beterbiev have done to it. You know, we're ranking this performance based on our expectation of Benavidez. You know, the consensus is he's seen as this sort of elite level guy. So we're going to compare him to other elite level guys, right? Like Beterbiev. And his performance here doesn't match up to what Beterbiev did. But maybe Beterbiev is just a beast. You know, I mean, he stopped Callum Smith in 7 rounds where Canelo couldn't stop him. You know, so maybe we need to cut Benavidez a little bit of slack. Maybe Beterbiev is just this beast. I know he's a massive light heavyweight who's really could be fighting at cruiserweight. You know, so maybe it's just that. But yeah, maybe we expected a bit too much from Benavidez based on what Beterbiev did to Gvozdyk, and maybe that's why a lot of people aren't too impressed with this performance. I would like to see Benavidez maybe go back down to 68, maybe fight David Morrell or Canelo Alvarez. I've always thought the Canelo fight is a fascinating fight. If he stays at 75, I wouldn't really want to see him to go straight in with Bivol or Beterbiev. Maybe fight another top contender at 75. And if he can impress there, then yeah, he deserves a shot at the undisputed. If he moves back down to 68, he definitely deserves his title shot. 100%, you know. But at 75, off this performance, is it enough for him to get a shot at undisputed? I don't know. One good thing that did impress me, though, from David Benavidez in this fight was his defense and his head movement. This was probably the most impressive defensive performance by David Benavidez. And maybe that reflects how he's going to have to fight at 75. Whereas at 68, he wasn't as defensively responsible. Maybe because he was so much bigger, the punches didn't have as much of an effect on him. And his power, he was just bulldozing guys. He wasn't relying as much on skill and defense at 68, where he's going to have to at 75 because he's not the puncher he is, you know. And I don't think he can afford to get hit the way he probably did at 68. But yeah, there was some good defense by David Benavidez, to be fair to him. I still think he sometimes crosses his feet and like switches into this kind of half southpaw stance, and it leaves him in quite an off-balance position. And it's how he got knocked out by Ronald Graville. So I think he's going to have to work on that, you know, maintaining that solid base, you know, not squaring his feet up and becoming off-balance, you know, because if you get hit in that position, even if you're not hurt, you can get knocked down. And in this level in boxing, you don't want to be giving away knockdowns. You know, it could be the difference between you winning and losing against a really top level light heavyweight. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this fight. Leave your comments down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.